Hello, this is Reverend JJ, back at the Lotus Lounge. Thank you for joining me. So I have another story and some history to share in regards to my upbringing and continued trauma, or the beginning of trauma, actually. This is going to be the beginning of the trauma. So, how things were while I was growing up as a baby and a toddler with my biological mom. I'm going to talk a little bit about that story and how it framed and helped, again, create who I've become. All the experiences that I've gone through have brought me to where I am at this present moment. So I needed to go through these experiences in life, sadly, so I could come out of them, get through them, and find my own peace and happiness. So I'm not sure how aware some of you may be in regards to understanding the development of one's personality. But I watched this video one time before, and it was a doctor. I don't remember. I think it was from Harvard or something. I'm pretty positive. Not really sure if that makes much of a difference, but he was talking about your personality and how it's pretty much developed before the age of 5. And then other things throughout life, obviously, are going to compile your personality. But you are who you are pretty much by the age of 5. So that means things that happen in early childhood have an impact. They have an impact consciously and potentially subconsciously deep in the brain that we don't even have access to. So early childhood trauma would definitely cause some problems with one's personality. So the same guy, I'd have to go back and find this YouTube video that I had watched, but he was talking about the memory and how one of the hemispheres of the brain is what holds on to memory up until the age of 3. So I think it's the left hemisphere, if I'm not mistaken, is like developing. So the left hemisphere of your brain is still developing outside of birth. And if there's an adverse incident that happens before the age of 3, when that part of your brain had fully developed, it gets all like messed up and kind of joggled. And then it causes the right hemisphere of your brain to kick in when it's not supposed to, because the left was supposed to continue to develop, okay? So yeah, go back and check out like neuroscience and things like that. And really interesting though. So, but the point is that we have things that happen in life, at birth and before the age of 4 that could potentially be indicators of what assists in forming who you are. And then also causing possible like brain damage, not like officially brain damage, but causing developmental issues in the brain if there is an adverse childhood experience causing trauma to the individual, right? So the story of my mom, Mary, that's her name. Not a very good woman, and all of what I know is mainly through what has been told to me because I was too young to remember. I would say, though, that I have this vague memory, and I believe I was probably close to like 2, maybe 3. I know it was before I was 4. Actually, now that I'm saying this out loud, I think it was probably before my accident happened. My accident was when I was right about 2-ish, 2.5. So yeah, That's about the age. Very vague memory of being in some like big apartment, like a small apartment with loads of clothes like piled up everywhere. Kind of just reminds me of like being kind of like dirty and unkept. So most of what I know is, what had been told to me by my dad. So here's the story of what I know about Mary. She apparently didn't like me, and I was told that I looked like my dad, so she didn't care for me very much because of that. I was also told that she blew pot smoke in my face when I was a baby, and she left me by myself, and on 2 separate occasions. So I was born on a naval base, and we lived on the naval base. My dad was in the Navy. And on 2 different occasions, the military police had come to, our home there. And my dad wasn't there because he was probably like stationed somewhere else, but we lived on the base, me and my mom and my sister. And apparently her boyfriend. But the cop had come, same cop, female cop, had come to the apartment on 2 different occasions because I was crying in the crib and I was all by myself. So there was some neglect there. So that would definitely interfere with the development of the toddler baby brain, right? So yeah, apparently she, was a cocaine addict. And from what I know, she was dating somebody, and this guy, when I was 2 years old, threw me across a room, and I had hit my head on a brick wall or some form of a concrete wall, and they ended up bringing me to the hospital, and I was told that my mom had left me there, and she refused to sign papers to consent for surgery. And my dad was stationed somewhere else. I guess he was in Texas. And a social worker from the hospital contacted my dad and had told him that I was in the hospital, and, asked, are you, so-and-so's dad? And he said yes. And she had said, she's here now, and if she doesn't get surgery soon, she's going to die. So my dad had given consent, and I believe he drove from Texas to where we were at the naval base. I was pretty much across the state. I think he said it took him like 2.5 days, but he drove nonstop with another person, I believe, went with him. But and then he said that when he got there, he wanted to go after this guy, and I think he had mentioned to me that he did go there to beat him up, but he didn't end up, doing anything. And my dad arranged for me to be transported to a different hospital, which was a much more reputable hospital in Boston, Massachusetts. And I ended up going there to one of the top neurosurgeons in the country, I believe. And I was airlifted to that hospital, and I had what's called a subdural hematoma, which is fluid on the brain. So basically, like, my brain was swelling, and there was fluid, and it was putting pressure on my skull. So they had to drill holes in my head so they could alleviate the pressure. And I was in a coma for a couple of weeks after this happened. They had to shave my head, and I don't remember any of this. I have no absolute knowledge of this, but this is significant trauma, and also like literal brain trauma, because I had a head injury. And they had said that if I did make it, that I would possibly have some forms of brain damage. And I mean, I'm 40 something here now, and I have a master's degree, and I'm like not the most smartest person in the world, but I think I'm kind of smart and pretty intelligent. And I do have a high IQ. It's like 128 or 124, somewhere around there. I got it tested when I was in my undergrad, but that was my psychological testing class that I took. So nothing ever came out of this, though. And I said this in another episode, but no Department of Children and Families was involved. The law didn't get involved. How is that possible? I had a serious brain trauma and I was airlifted to major hospital, and nobody pressed charges against this guy or arrested this guy that did this. So who knows where he is? I have no idea. It was all because my dad was in the military. And things were just, hush, hush. Can't make a big scene. It's the Navy. What? Can't be tainted. I didn't ask for that to happen. Why wasn't there any justice? So I don't know how long I was in the hospital for, but my sister was already alive. She's 1.5 years younger than me, so she was still pretty little. And I guess my dad took both of us, and we went to my grandma's. And here we are again, went back to my grandma's. And she helped take care of me. I was told that there was quite a bit of recovery that had to happen. My dad had said that he had to take me back and forth to the hospital for a drainage of my cerebral spinal fluid because it would build up or something. And I do wonder what they did with that. And I'm not trying to act all paranoid or whatnot, but I'm really curious to know what hospitals do with all this stuff that they get. I don't know. This just sounds really strange and really kind of fucked up to me. So what do they do with my cerebral spinal fluid? What do they do with other organs? I don't know. Whatever. So my mom had attempted to rekindle things with my dad or whatever. She tried reconnecting with him, and he's a sucker. So he actually allowed it. So she and her mom, my Grammy, arranged for my mom, I guess, to go see me or something. And my mom kidnapped me. And my dad had to hire a private investigator to be able to find me. And so this is, I don't know what the length of time is from when I got out of surgery and I was recovering to when this incident happened. But I will say too that my Grammy did later die. She's not alive. And she called my dad's mom, my other grandma. I was told that she called because she felt guilty because she helped facilitate my kidnapping. And she had lived with that her whole life, and she couldn't live with it anymore. She was on her deathbed and she was dying, and she called my grandma and asked for forgiveness for what she did. And I thought that was pretty significant. So what I was told was my dad said that they found me in Corpus Christi, Texas, and I guess some shack-like type of thing. And I wonder if maybe it's that memory that I have with the clothes piled up everywhere. I wonder, and then I had said that I think that occurred before my accident, but how do I know? So I don't know. Maybe that is what I recall. But I believe it was kind of unlivable. It wasn't clean. It was dirty and stuff. And I guess my dad ended up, taking me from there. But again, my mom didn't get held accountable. Nobody got arrested. Nothing happened. So, she got busted with cocaine on a military base. Cops coming out there. Crying. Who knows how long I've been staying there for. Soiled diapers likely. Hadn't eaten. Totally neglected. So an inability to thrive. And my dad wasn't there. No justice. I haven't really seen that in my life. I can't really say that I've had very much justice for the things that have happened. But we still have to be at peace with that. We still have to understand that everything had to happen the way that it was meant to. So I did later see my mom when I was 16, and I know I had mentioned that in another episode when I went to go visit her, wanting to know like my roots and stuff. And she was living in a trailer, and she worked at Publix, and I didn't really seem like she had made too much of herself. So I have no idea where she is now. I don't know if she's alive or dead. I don't think anybody would ever notify me because she probably has like nothing to leave me. So I don't see why like I would be notified of a death. I'm not her next of kin likely listed. I know, both her parents are deceased, so I don't really know what would happen to her, but I mentioned in another episode also that after that visit that I had when I was 16 with her, she didn't have any other contact with me. She never reached out to me again, or I never heard from her again. Like, it just totally dropped off, like it never happened. And then I, reconnected again when I was 21-ish, 21, 22, somewhere around there, after I graduated with my bachelor's degree. And that's when I found her smoking crack with my cousin. And I had told her that I never wanted to see her again, that I was doing fine. So there was a lot there to unpack. I mean, we've got neglect, physical abuse, brain trauma, just trauma in general, and not feeling loved. She chose drugs over her children. A parent that wasn't meant to be a parent just caused harm. So we have to remember that sometimes people are in our life for a reason, and sometimes people are not in our life for a reason. Sometimes those individuals are removed from us because they would cause more harm than good. So think about that when you think about some people that you may have lost, or some people that are no longer in your life. There is a reason. Sometimes we don't know what that reason is, but there's a reason. She taught me how I didn't want to be as a mom. And now I am a mom. And I believe my kids are thriving. We got all this crazy going on in the world around us right now, but we're all safe and we're all maintaining, and we've all been through a lot of shit together, but we're persevering and we're here together still. So we still have each other, and I'm happy for that. Their dad was removed from their life for a reason. He went to prison for 8 years. So people are here to teach us something. There's a lesson. So what are we learning? So part of the healing process, to be able to kind of work through some of these types of abandonment issues, is to assist with the processing, is doing writing, like journaling. And I've always kept a journal. I have a journal. I can go back probably 10 to 15 years in my journal. So I have a lot of stuff that I've jotted down. But I did a therapeutic letter, and I highly suggest that anybody do this if you're trying to kind of work through some unresolved trauma with anybody, whether it's a partner or a parent or a sibling, or a friend. But a therapeutic letter. So you write a letter as if you are talking to the person and you're telling them everything about what you think and feel. And we're not censoring it. It's raw and it's emotional. The intention is to just release all that's going on inside. And journaling helps with processing in the brain. So writing and journaling is highly suggested when you're dealing with trauma. So anybody that has trauma should have a journal. I have a journal. So I practice what I preach. I wrote in it, I believe, last week. I don't write it in every single day. I've gone a year and then wrote in it. So it happens. But there's been times that I wrote in it and I said, I'm so aggravated right now that I can't even do this. And I had to put it away because that coping mechanism wasn't going to work for me at that time for whatever the reason was. But journaling is still beneficial and it assists in the whole processing. So I wrote this letter and did a therapeutic letter when I was going through my yoga teaching training. So, this is years later. I don't even know, what are we talking? I don't know, 2008 or 9, something like that, 2008 or 9. So yeah, that was over 10 years ago. And so I wrote this letter and I was angry and I was pissed off. And I just told her how horrible of a person she was and how she should have never had kids. And it was just anger. And I got it all out because I was fuming. Clearly was harboring resentment, or harboring anger. And when we harbor anger, that negative emotion, it can still manifest itself in a physical form. So when we have emotional issues, sometimes we have physical pain. And I got all that anger out. And I used to have some physical pain issues with my back until I went to my yoga teaching training. And I wrote that letter and I kept it, and it was in a notebook. And I don't know, like a year or two later, I found it in my apartment. I just stumbled across it and I was like, oh, wow, this is interesting. So I ended up pulling it back out and I read it. And I was like, wow, damn, man, y'all, you were pissed off. But at the end of the letter, I thanked her. I thanked her for giving birth to me. Because without her, I wouldn't be here. And I have a purpose. There's a reason. There's a reason why we're all here. We all have a purpose, right? Sometimes we just have to figure out what that purpose is. Not everybody quite knows. But I thanked her and I forgave her. And that's what we have to remember, is the forgiveness isn't to make it okay what they did. The forgiveness is to free yourself. So you're not continuing to hold on to that negativity in your body. We release it, right? We let it go. And that's what we have to work on. Letting go and forgiving. Not forgiving necessarily the action, but saying, I forgive you that I'm no longer going to allow this trauma or event to continue to impact me anymore. I find forgiveness in my heart so I can be okay and move forward. The forgiveness is for you, not for the other person. So I think that pretty much covers most of it. I'm middle-aged basically, and I have no idea where she is, and I really don't give a fuck. She should have gotten help a long time ago. And maybe if somebody had actually intervened, and maybe if she was held accountable for her actions the first time the cop came out, when I was left there by myself, neglected and abandoned in my crib, I don't know. Maybe things would have been different. I imagine they would have been. But, yeah, not too cool of the military, naval branch, to take a child abuse situation and shove it under the rug and not hold anybody accountable for a crime. Because she also had cocaine, so she had drugs on a military base. Okay? No accountability. Her life probably would have been a hell of a lot different if somebody had actually done something. And even that guy that hurt me, I mean, who knows where the hell he is either. I have no idea, but... So I do hope that someday I have the justice that I deserve. But for now, here we are. And I'm good. And my boys are good. And we're safe. And we're not being traumatized other than the psychological operation that is currently unfolding around us. So I hope you found this to be helpful for you and maybe help to put some things into perspective, or maybe learned something new or a different tool, or triggered something in your own mind to help you gain some insight and some understanding into yourself and how you can transform from darkness to light. Just like the lotus. You can find me on my website, jjlotustherapy.com, at ZenChick on Twitter,